My family mocked my career until I got engaged to a CEO. Now they're greedy for his fortune. But I set a trap that exposed their true colors. I never thought that announcing my engagement would turn my family from strangers into vultures overnight. But sometimes the people who share your blood are the ones who'll bleed you dry the fastest. My name is Amelia Hart, and I'm 29 years old. For the past 5 years, I've been building my interior design business from scratch, working 16-hour days in a cramped studio apartment, living off instant coffee and determination. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture I designed, every client I landed, every dollar I earned, it all belonged to me, and me alone. That independence came at a cost, though. 5 years ago, I'd made the difficult decision to cut ties with my family. Not completely, but enough to protect my sanity and my future. My mother, Eleanor Hart, had spent most of my 20s reminding me that I was a disappointment. "Why can't you get a real job like Tyler?" she'd say, referring to my younger brother who was supposedly finding himself while living in her basement. "When are you going to stop playing with dollhouses and start acting like an adult?" Tyler, 26 and perpetually unemployed, was somehow the golden child in her eyes. He had potential, she'd say. He was between opportunities. Meanwhile, I was the family failure because I chose creative work over a corporate cubicle. The final straw came during my 24th birthday dinner, when she introduced me to her friends as our daughter who's still figuring out what she wants to be when she grows up. I walked out that night and barely spoke to them since. But last month, everything changed. I met Marcus Wellington at a design expo where I was showcasing my work. He owned Wellington Properties, one of the largest real estate development companies on the East Coast, and he was looking for someone to design the interiors for his luxury hotel chain. What started as a business meeting turned into coffee, then dinner, then late-night conversations about architecture and dreams and the future we both wanted to build. Marcus was everything I never knew I was looking for. Successful, yes, but more importantly, he saw my work as art, not a hobby. He understood the passion that drove me to spend hours perfecting the curve of a chair, or the exact shade of paint for a hotel lobby. When he proposed 3 weeks ago in the penthouse suite of his newest hotel, surrounded by furniture I designed, I knew I'd found not just love, but partnership. The engagement ring was stunning, a vintage Art Deco piece that perfectly matched my aesthetic. But what mattered more was the way Marcus looked at me when he slipped it onto my finger. Like I was his greatest achievement, his most treasured acquisition. For the first time in my life, I felt truly valued. I should have been completely happy, but there was one nagging thought in the back of my mind. Should I tell my family? Marcus had been encouraging me to reach out to them. "They're your family, Amelia," he'd say gently. "Maybe this is a chance to rebuild those bridges." Part of me wanted to share this incredible news with my mother, to finally have something that would make her proud of me. So 2 weeks ago I made the call. "Hello, Mother, it's Amelia." The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Eleanor's voice came through, cautious and cold. "Amelia, what a surprise. Is everything all right?" "Actually, yes, everything's wonderful. I wanted to share some news with you." I took a deep breath. "I'm engaged." Another pause. "Engaged? To whom?" "His name is Marcus Wellington. He's... Wellington?" Her voice suddenly changed, becoming sharper, more interested. "As in Wellington Properties?" My stomach dropped slightly. Of course she'd know the name. Marcus's company had been in the news recently for a major development deal. "Yes, that's him." What happened next still gives me chills. Eleanor's voice transformed completely, from distant and judgmental to warm and excited, like someone had flipped a switch. "Oh, honey, that's wonderful. That's incredible. Why didn't you tell us sooner? We're so proud of you. Tyler, come here. Your sister is engaged to Marcus Wellington." I heard fumbling as she put me on speakerphone. Tyler's voice came through, equally enthusiastic. "Amelia, sis, this is amazing. We've been following his company for months. The guy's brilliant." The sudden shift in their tone made my skin crawl. These were the same people who'd spent years making me feel worthless, and now they were celebrating because my fiancé had money? But I pushed down my discomfort and tried to focus on the positive. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe this could be a fresh start. "We need to celebrate," Eleanor gushed. "When's the engagement party? Please tell me we're invited." "It's been so long since we've seen you, sweetheart." "Sweetheart," She hadn't called me that since I was 12. We're having a small party next month, I said carefully. Nothing too big. Oh, but we have to be there. Family should be together for such important moments. And we'd love to meet Marcus. I'm sure he's wonderful if you chose him. Tyler chimed in, yeah, we definitely want to meet the guy who's making our sister so happy. Maybe we could all get dinner sometime before the party? Their enthusiasm felt performative, like actors who'd been given new scripts but hadn't quite memorized their lines yet. But I wanted to believe it was genuine. I wanted to believe that my success could finally bridge the gap between us. I'll talk to Marcus about dinner, I said. He's very busy with work, but I'm sure we can figure something out. Of course he's busy, Eleanor said. Successful men always are. You're so lucky, Amelia. We always knew you'd end up with someone special. That was a lie, and we both knew it. But I let it slide. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment feeling unsettled. Their reaction had been too extreme, too sudden. People don't just flip their entire attitude overnight, especially people as stubborn as my mother. But Marcus was thrilled when I told him about the call. See, I told you they'd come around. Family always does. I wanted to share his optimism, but something felt off. Over the next few days, that feeling only grew stronger. It started with the phone calls. Eleanor began calling me daily, something she'd never done in my entire adult life. She'd ask about Marcus's work, his hobbies, his family background, his business plans. She was particularly interested in his company's financial status and future projects. I just want to get to know my future son-in-law, she'd say when I questioned her curiosity. Is that so wrong? Tyler started texting me constantly too, sending me articles about Marcus's company and asking questions about his investment strategies. Just trying to stay informed about my sister's life, he'd explain. The most disturbing part was how they began inserting themselves into our wedding planning. Eleanor called venues to ask about availability on behalf of the bride's family. Tyler researched catering companies and sent me unsolicited suggestions. They were planning my wedding like it was their event, not mine. Maybe we should have the reception at the Wellington Hotel, Eleanor suggested during one of our calls. It would be such a nice touch, don't you think? Very romantic. Marcus and I haven't decided on a venue yet, I replied. Well, when you do decide, make sure there's room for extended family. Your cousin Janet would love to come, and Uncle Robert hasn't seen you in years. Oh, and Tyler's been hoping to bring a date. Tyler has a girlfriend? Well, not exactly, but he's been talking to this lovely girl from his business networking group. Business networking group? Tyler had been unemployed for 3 years. What business networking group? The more they pushed themselves into my life, the more suspicious I became. So I did something I'd never done before. I hired someone to investigate my own family. Maria Santos had been my cleaning lady years ago when I first moved out. She was discreet, observant, and, most importantly, still cleaned houses in my old neighborhood, including for some of my mother's friends. I asked her to keep her ears open about my family's recent activities. What she discovered made my blood run cold. Miss Amelia, Maria said when she called me a week later, I think you need to know what your mother and brother have been saying. She'd overheard Eleanor talking to her friend Nancy about my engagement. The conversation had been revealing in the worst possible way. She said Tyler has been researching your fiancé's business for weeks, Maria reported. She called Marcus your meal ticket and said this was the family's chance to finally get ahead in life. My hands started shaking as she continued. Your brother has been telling people he's going to ask Marcus for a job, maybe as a consultant or advisor. He said rich guys always need people they can trust, and who better than family? The room started spinning. What else? Your mother. She said some very mean things about you, Miss Amelia. She told Nancy that you were always too stupid to realize when people were using you, and now it was their turn to use that stupidity to their advantage. I had to sit down. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally were plotting to exploit my happiness for their own gain. But Maria wasn't finished. There's more. Your brother owes money to some very bad people, gambling debts. He told someone he plans to get your fiancé to loan him money to pay them off. He said rich guys like Marcus probably lose more money in their couch cushions than Tyler owes. How much does he owe? From what I heard, at least $50,000. Maybe more. I felt sick. Tyler wasn't just unemployed, he was in serious trouble. And they were planning to use my relationship with Marcus to bail him out? Your mother has debts too, Maria continued. Remember that boutique she tried to open 2 years ago? It failed, but she still owes rent and suppliers. She's been telling people that once you're married to Mr. Wellington, she'll ask him to invest in a new business for her. They weren't happy for me. They weren't proud of me. They saw Marcus as a bank account with legs, and me as their access card. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all their phone calls, all their sudden interest in my life, all their enthusiastic wedding planning. None of it had been about me. It had all been about Marcus's money. I needed proof, though, something concrete that would expose their real intentions. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. 2 days later, Eleanor called with a new request. Sweetie, Tyler and I were wondering if we could come by your apartment this weekend. We'd love to see how you're living, and maybe we could finally meet Marcus if he's around. Marcus is traveling this weekend, I lied. Business trip. Oh, that's too bad. Well, maybe we could still visit, just family time? Something in her tone made me suspicious. Why this weekend specifically? No particular reason. We just miss you and want to reconnect. After we hung up, I called Maria again. I need a favor. Can you find out what my mother and Tyler are really planning for this weekend? Maria's network of neighborhood gossips came through once again. Within hours, she had the answer. They're planning to search your apartment, she told me. They want to find financial documents, bank statements, anything that would tell them how much money your fiancé has. Tyler thinks if they can figure out his net worth, they'll know how much they can ask for. My own family was planning to spy on me in my own home. That's when I decided to set a trap. I called Eleanor back and told her Marcus had returned early from his trip and would love to meet them this weekend. Why don't you both come to our engagement party instead? I suggested. It's next Saturday. It'll be the perfect opportunity for everyone to meet. Oh, that's wonderful. We'll be there. Great. I'll put you both on the guest list. What I didn't tell her was that I was planning to make their attendance very memorable. Over the next week, I worked with Maria to gather more evidence. She managed to record a conversation between Eleanor and Tyler using her phone while she was cleaning a neighboring house. The audio quality wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough to understand their intentions. In the recording, Tyler's voice came through clearly. Once I get close to this Marcus guy, I'll pitch him some investment opportunities. Rich guys love feeling like they're mentoring young entrepreneurs. I'll tell him I have this great startup idea. Eleanor responded. And I'll work on Amelia. She's always been soft-hearted. I'll tell her about my financial troubles, make her feel guilty for abandoning her family. She'll convince Marcus to help us. How much do you think we can get out of him? Tyler asked. Sky's the limit, the guy's worth millions. Even if we can get a few $100,000, it'll solve all our problems. Tyler laughed. Amelia has no idea how useful she's finally becoming. The recording was damning, but there was more. If the direct approach doesn't work, Eleanor continued, we can always play the family emergency card. I'll suddenly develop some serious health problem that requires expensive treatment. Amelia will panic and beg Marcus to help. That's brilliant, Mom. And if I can get a job at his company, I'll have access to insider information. Maybe we can make some smart investments with his money. They were planning to defraud my fiancé, manipulate me, and potentially commit securities fraud. My own mother and brother were criminals, and I was their target. The engagement party was held at Marcus's penthouse, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and elegant decor that showcased my design work. 200 guests mingled throughout the spacious rooms. Marcus's business associates, my clients, friends we'd made together. It was exactly the kind of sophisticated event that would impress anyone who attended. Eleanor and Tyler arrived fashionably late, dressed in clothes I'd never seen before. Designer labels, expensive accessories. They'd clearly spent money. They didn't have to look the part of successful family members. Amelia. Eleanor rushed over to embrace me, her perfume overwhelming and her smile too wide. You look absolutely stunning. And this place. Marcus certainly knows how to live. Tyler wasn't far behind, his eyes scanning the room like he was appraising every piece of art and furniture. Sis, this is incredible. You really landed yourself a winner. Marcus was gracious when I introduced them, shaking Tyler's hand firmly and kissing Eleanor's cheek politely. I've heard so much about you both. Amelia's told me how much family means to her. That was a lie, but Marcus was too kind to throw my family under the bus before giving them a chance to prove themselves. We're so proud of our Amelia, Eleanor gushed. She's always been destined for great things. We knew someday she'd find someone who truly appreciates her talents. More lies. But I smiled and played along, watching them perform their act of loving family members. As the evening progressed, I watched Eleanor and Tyler work the room. They introduced themselves to Marcus's business partners, dropping hints about their own ventures and investment opportunities. Tyler managed to corner the CEO of a tech startup, pitching some vague business idea about revolutionary marketing strategies. Eleanor attached herself to the wives of several wealthy men, fishing for information about their lifestyles and spending habits. They were networking, but not in the way normal people network. They were hunting. Around 9 o'clock, I noticed Tyler trying to get Marcus alone. He was asking about the company's expansion plans, probing for financial details, positioning himself as someone who could be useful to Marcus's business. That's when I knew it was time. I walked to the center of the room and gently tapped my champagne glass with a knife. The conversation died down as guests turned their attention to me. "Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate with Marcus and me," I began, my voice steady and clear. "Before we continue with the evening, I wanted to share something with all of you. Something about the importance of knowing who really loves you." Eleanor and Tyler looked pleased, probably thinking I was about to give some heartfelt speech about family reunification. Family is supposed to be the people who support your dreams, who celebrate your successes, and who love you unconditionally, I continued. Unfortunately, sometimes the people who share your blood are the same people who see you as nothing more than an opportunity to exploit. Eleanor's face began to change, confusion replacing her earlier confidence. "I recently discovered that some people have been attending this party under false pretenses. They're not here to celebrate love or happiness, they're here to scheme, to manipulate, and to commit fraud." Tyler stepped forward, his face pale. "Amelia, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about this." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the sound system. The recording I'd obtained through Maria began playing through the speakers, clear enough for everyone in the room to hear. Tyler's voice filled the penthouse. "Once I get close to this Marcus guy, I'll pitch him some investment opportunities." Eleanor tried to rush toward me, but Marcus stepped between us, his expression dark with anger. The recording continued, playing out their entire conversation about using me to get to Marcus's money, about faking illnesses, about insider trading, about how I was finally becoming useful. The room was dead silent except for the sound of their own voices condemning them. When the recording ended, Eleanor tried to speak. "Amelia, sweetheart, you're misunderstanding. Am I misunderstanding you calling me stupid and planning to exploit my fiancé?" Tyler's face was red with anger and embarrassment. "You recorded us without our permission. That's illegal." "Actually," said a voice from across the room, "in this state, only one party needs to consent to recording a conversation. And since the person who made this recording was invited into the space where you were speaking, there's no expectation of privacy." The voice belonged to David Chen, Marcus's attorney, who had been enjoying the party until it became a legal education seminar. Furthermore, David continued, "Conspiracy to commit fraud, making false pretenses to obtain money, and securities fraud are all felonies. If Mr. Wellington chooses to press charges—" "Now wait just a minute," Eleanor stammered. "We haven't actually done anything wrong. We were just talking. You were just planning," I corrected. "Planning to defraud my fiancé. Planning to manipulate me, planning to fake medical emergencies for money. You weren't celebrating my engagement. You were strategizing about how to rob the man I love." Marcus finally spoke, his voice cold and controlled. "I think it's time for you both to leave." "Amelia, please," Eleanor begged, tears streaming down her face. "We're family. We can work this out." "No," I said firmly. "Family doesn't plot to steal from each other. Family doesn't call each other stupid behind their backs. Family doesn't see each other as opportunities to exploit." 2 security guards appeared. Marcus had apparently signaled them during the recording. They flanked Eleanor and Tyler, waiting for instructions. "You're making a mistake," Tyler said desperately. "We're your family. You can't just throw us away for some guy you've known for 3 months. "You're right," I replied. "I can't throw away my family. But I can remove parasites who pretend to be family." The security guards escorted them out while 200 guests watched in stunned silence. Some were recording with their phones. By tomorrow, the story would be all over social media. Eleanor's reputation in her social circle would be destroyed. Tyler's dreams of conning his way into high society were over. After they left, the party resumed but with a different energy. Guests approached me throughout the rest of the evening, expressing their admiration for how I'd handled the situation. Several business owners mentioned they'd had similar experiences with family members trying to exploit their success. Marcus was quiet for most of the rest of the evening, but when the last guest left, he wrapped his arms around me on the terrace overlooking the city. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I'm sorry they tried to use our love for their own gain." "I'm not sorry," I replied. "I'm relieved. Now I know exactly where I stand with them, and I know you'll never have to deal with their manipulation." "Are you okay? Really?" I thought about it for a moment. Was I okay? My mother and brother had revealed themselves to be everything I'd feared they were. Selfish, manipulative, and willing to hurt me for their own benefit. They'd spent years making me feel worthless, and when I finally found happiness, they'd tried to steal it. But standing there with Marcus, looking out at the city where I'd built my career and my life, I realized something important. I was more than okay. I was free. "I'm perfect," I told him. "For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The wedding took place 3 months later in a small ceremony, surrounded by people who genuinely loved and supported us. My real family was there. The clients who had become friends, the vendors who had helped me build my business, the colleagues who had believed in my work when no one else would. Eleanor and Tyler weren't invited, obviously, but they weren't forgotten either. 2 weeks after the engagement party, Tyler was arrested for check fraud. Apparently, his gambling debts had driven him to even more desperate measures. Eleanor lost her house when she couldn't make the mortgage payments without counting on money from Marcus that was never coming. I didn't take any pleasure in their downfall, but I didn't feel guilty about it either. They had made their choices, and those choices had consequences. Marcus and I built our life together based on honesty, respect, and genuine love, qualities that my birth family had never shown me. We traveled together for business, collaborated on design projects for his hotels, and created a partnership that was both personal and professional. Sometimes people ask if I ever regret cutting off my family completely. The answer is simple: you can't cut off something that was never really connected to you in the first place. Eleanor and Tyler weren't family. They were opportunists who happened to share my DNA. Real family shows up for you when you have nothing to offer them except yourself. Real family celebrates your success without calculating how they can profit from it. Real family loves you for who you are, not for what you can give them. Standing in our bedroom now, looking at the wedding photo on our dresser, I think about the journey that brought me here. Every rejection from my mother, every dismissive comment about my career, every year of feeling like I wasn't good enough. It all led me to this moment, to this life, to this man who sees my worth without needing to add up my assets. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to stop watering dead plants and start cultivating the garden that actually wants to grow. Sometimes family isn't about blood, it's about choosing the people who choose you back. And sometimes, the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you exactly who they really are, so you can decide whether they deserve a place in your life. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I learned it completely, and now, finally, I'm free to bloom exactly where I was meant to be planted.